When Prairie Line Electric cut the power to Noah Baird's farm in June of 1964, most of Platte County gave him 3 weeks. 3 weeks before the corn started curling. 3 weeks before the cattle tanks went dry. 3 weeks before a quiet man on 320 acres of bottom ground learned what every modern farmer already knew. A farm without electricity was not a farm anymore. It was just land waiting to fail. But behind Noah's oat shed, under a hay rack, 2 cracked wagon tongues, and 20 years of pigeon dust, sat a wind engine his grandfather had refused to sell for scrap. A steel Dempster head from before the First World War, bent tail, missing vane, gearbox frozen hard with old grease. The kind of machine everyone in town called obsolete until the first frost came early. And by the time the men with electric grain dryers understood what that frost had done to their corn, Noah Baird's harvest was already under a roof, drying in the dark, without asking anyone for permission. The first letter came in the last week of May. It was polite enough to sound harmless. Prairie Line Electric Cooperative informed Noah that feeder circuit 7B, which served the farms northwest of Duncan, required load balancing and line modernization. The work would begin soon. Temporary interruptions were possible. Service would be restored before the heavy irrigation window. Noah read the letter at the kitchen table, folded it once, and set it beside the salt shaker. He was 46 years old, narrow across the face, strong across the hands, and not given to talking when the facts were still arranging themselves. His wife had died 7 years earlier. His hired man had left for Omaha the winter before. His farm ran on 2 things now, habit and the electric pump in the well house. That pump fed the livestock tanks. It pushed water into a shallow irrigation ditch along the north field. It supplied the pressure line that kept his late-planted corn from burning up in July. It was not luxury power. It was the difference between a crop and a note the bank could call. The second letter arrived 9 days later. Noah knew something had changed before he opened it, because the envelope was heavier, and because the return address was not the cooperative office in Columbus. It was from Warren Kessler. Kessler was general manager of Prairie Line Electric. He was also an advisory partner in the Valley Grain Improvement Association, which was a clean name for a rough machine. A buying pool that had spent 2 years persuading independent farmers to sign delivery contracts, sell marginal acres, or step aside for men who understood scale. The letter said feeder circuit 7B would be shut down for approximately 96 days. 96. Not the summer, not until after the crop was made. 96 days sounded measured, reasonable, engineered. It also meant June, July, August, and the first part of September. Noah stood at the sink and looked out toward the well house. The pump sat in the little white building, like a heart someone else could stop. That Saturday, he drove into Duncan for fencing staples and found Warren Kessler at the grain office, wearing a linen summer coat that looked out of place among seed caps and dust. Kessler saw Noah at the counter and smiled as if they had already had a conversation and Noah had simply not accepted the conclusion. "Noah," he said, loud enough for the men near the coffee urn to hear, "there's no shame in making the sensible move. 300 acres alone is a hard proposition now, especially without guaranteed service." The room did not laugh. That made it worse. Harold Voss, who ran the elevator scale, looked down at his ledger. Mabel Rusk stopped filling coffee cups. 2 farmers near the window pretended to read the moisture board. Noah paid for the staples. He did not answer Kessler. Not because he had no answer. Because the answer was under a hay rack behind his oat shed. The wind engine had belonged to Noah's grandfather, Elias Baird, who had pumped water with it before the first rural line ever crossed Shell Creek. When electricity came, Elias took the tower down in sections and stacked the head inside instead of selling it. Noah's father had called that foolish. Noah had called it clutter. Now he dragged the head into the yard and found the crank plate still intact beneath the rust. The fan wheel was warped. 2 sail sections were gone. The tail hinge had seized. The sucker rod coupler was bent. But the gears moved after he soaked them in kerosene and worked them back and forth by hand. That was enough. For 6 evenings after chores, Noah rebuilt what the county had forgotten how to look at. He cut new wooden vanes from clear pine boards. He filed burrs off the gear teeth. He replaced the leather pump cups with pieces he trimmed from an old harness strap. He found a 1937 pump manual in a fruit crate in the attic. The pages curled from heat and read it with one thumb holding the binding together. He did not make the wind engine new. He made it honest. On June 6, the power died at 8:42 in the morning. The cream separator stopped in mid-hum. The well house went silent. The kitchen clock clicked once and quit. Noah was already outside. He had spent the previous day setting a 28-foot tower made from salvaged angle iron and 2 cedar poles braced with guy wire. It was not pretty. Nothing on his farm that had to work was pretty before it proved itself. By noon, Harold Voss had driven out from town. By 2, Noah's neighbor, Lee Markham, was standing in the yard with one boot on a coil of rope, watching the old head rise. The wind caught the fan before the last bolt was tight. The wheel turned once, stopped, turned again. Then the pump rod began to move with a slow, stubborn rhythm. At 3:15, water hit the stock tank. Not fast, not cleanly at first. It coughed rust, then air, then a brown stream that cleared after 10 minutes. By evening, the tank was full. Lee Markham leaned on the fence and said, "That won't run a cornfield." Noah looked at the north rows, already pale at the leaf edges from a dry spring. "No," he said, "but it might run a man who knows where the water has to go." That was the part Kessler had misread. The electric pump had made Noah's farm easier. It had not made Noah careless. He knew the slope of the north field by foot, because he had laid the ditch grade himself. He knew the low seam near the cottonwood line held moisture 2 days longer than the ridge. He knew the late-planted 20 acres did not need comfort. It needed survival. So he stopped trying to replace the electric pump. He built a different system. He ran the windmill into a raised wooden cistern behind the well house, using the old stock tank as a buffer. From there, gravity fed a narrow ditch line into the north field. He blocked every 3rd furrow with scrap lath, opened only the rows that mattered, and moved the water in small sets that would have looked ridiculous to anyone measuring horsepower. Every morning before the heat rose, he walked the field with a steel probe and a pocket notebook. Depth, color, root feel, wind hours, water level. On June 18, he bought a soil moisture tester from the supply counter in Columbus and marked 12 spots with wire flags. On June 19, he wrote the first number in the notebook. On June 20, he wrote the second. By the end of June, the notebook knew more about his farm than the cooperative did. Kessler drove past twice that month. The first time, he slowed and looked at the windmill, as if he were looking at a man patching a roof with newspaper. The second time, he did not slow. At a Farm Bureau supper, he told 3 men near the church basement door that some operators confuse stubbornness with management. Nobody had to ask who he meant. The sentence reached Noah through Mabel Rusk 2 days later. He was in the north field when Lee told him. The wind was up. The wheel was turning hard enough that the tower gave off a faint metallic hum. Noah pressed the moisture probe into the dirt, read the dial, and wrote the number down. He did not ask what else Kessler had said. There was no use studying a man's words when his timing had already told you what he was. July came in mean. The first 10 days were hot but workable. The wind rose most afternoons and ran steady until dusk. The cistern filled slowly. The ditch line did its small, patient work. Then the wind stopped. For 5 days, the air sat over Platte County like a lid. The corn leaves rolled tight by noon. The cattle stood with their heads low. The old wind engine turned just enough to remind Noah what it was not doing. On the fourth evening, he climbed the tower and greased the head again. Though he knew grease was not wind, he came down with his shirt stuck to his back and his hands black to the wrist. The moisture readings were falling, not collapsing. Falling. That was worse in a way, because collapse gave a man permission to quit. A falling line asked him to keep thinking while the ground took a little more away each day. On July 17, another certified letter came. This one did not mention modernization. It said Noah's account had been reviewed, and that reconnection after system work would require a $538 capacity restoration deposit, payable by September 5. $538. The number was not impossible. It was simply placed where it could do the most harm. Before harvest money, after summer expenses, right when fuel, twine, repairs, and hired labor all had to be paid. Noah read the letter twice. Then he set it under the stone on his desk and went back outside. He did not have the spare cash. He did have a broken horse-powered sweep in the machine shed, an old gear reduction box, and a second pump cylinder he had bought at an auction for $3 because nobody else wanted to carry it home. For 2 days, he built a second lift beside the well casing. When the wind ran above 20 miles an hour, the old Dempster drove both cylinders together. When the wind fell, he uncoupled the second cylinder so the wheel could keep moving instead of stalling under too much load. It was crude, it was ugly, it required watching, but it turned wind into water a little more intelligently than before. On July 21, a south wind came hard after lunch. The wheel blurred, the rods climbed and dropped. Water climbed the pipe into the cistern faster than Noah had seen since the outage began. He stood there for 20 minutes, not smiling, not celebrating, just measuring with his eyes. That evening, he opened the ditch gates before sundown and let water crawl through the flagged rows until dark. The corn held, not all of it, not perfectly, but enough. And once the corn held, Noah began thinking about the problem that came after survival. Drying. Every man in Platte County had built his harvest calendar around electricity without saying it out loud. Let the corn stand until it dropped close to 20% moisture. Run the picker, run the sheller, run the dryer, take it to town. That was the modern rhythm. Without power, Noah had no dryer. Prairie Line's letter said service might return in September. Kessler's deposit letter said it might not return at all unless Noah paid first. So Noah stopped planning around the dryer. He went to the county extension office and asked for old bulletins on ear corn storage. The young clerk gave him 2 pamphlets from a back file and looked at him as if he had asked for a map to a place that no longer existed. At home, Noah read about slatted corn cribs, natural air curing, husk ventilation, ear depth, crib width, and the moisture range farmers had used before powered dryers became common. 26% on the ear, 8-foot crib width, air through the sides, not forced from a fan. No shelling until the corn had cured enough to hold. He measured the old crib behind the barn. 44 feet long, 7.5 feet wide, open slats on the west side, good exposure to the fall wind. It was not a dryer. It was an argument with time, and Noah had started winning arguments with time. In town, nobody was thinking about September corn. They were thinking about Kessler's contracts. Valley Grain had been offering spring delivery agreements with favorable operating credit attached. A farmer who signed could lock in a price, guarantee elevator space, and receive terms the bank liked. The print was dense, the promise was simple. Sign now, modernize later. Several farmers did. Lee Markham nearly did. Noah, he said one evening in August, sitting at the kitchen table with a contract folded in his shirt pocket. Maybe he's right about the way things are going. Noah poured coffee and did not answer immediately. Outside, The windmill turned in the dark. Then he said, "A man can sell corn he has." Lee looked at him. Noah tapped the contract once with 2 fingers. "Paper corn is different." Lee did not sign that night. By late August, Noah's north field was farther along than he had expected. The drought had pushed maturity unevenly, but the ears had set, and the early rows near the cottonwood seam were nearly ready for what he intended. On August 30, with most of the county still waiting for normal dry down, Noah pulled the first wagon load. The ears were heavy. The husks were green at the base. The moisture tested at 26.5%. Too wet for shelled storage, acceptable for ear corn curing if the crib was right and the weather cooperated. He filled the crib slowly. Not by field habit, by airflow. He left channels in the pile. He kept the center from packing too tight. He opened the west slats and cleaned the weeds away from the wind side. Every wagon load looked wrong to men who drove past. Corn belonged in the field in early September. That was what the county believed. Noah was putting his under a roof before anybody else had started. Kessler heard about it by the second week. At the elevator, he told Harold Voss that desperate men often mistook activity for progress. Harold did not repeat that line to Noah. Mabel did. Noah only asked, "Did he say it before or after the frost forecast?" Mabel blinked. There was no frost forecast, not yet. That was the thing about danger in farm country. The worst of it rarely arrives announced. The first killing frost came on October 2nd. It dropped out of a clear sky after 3 warm days that had made everyone careless. At 4 in the morning, Noah's barn thermometer read 27 degrees. He stood in the yard in a coat over his work shirt and watched his breath move silver in the dark. The corn crib was more than 3/4 full. The north and center blocks were under cover, ears curing in the slatted air. His most recent test showed 23% moisture and falling. The south field still stood. So did most of Platte County. By sunrise, the co-op lot in Duncan was full of pickups. Men stepped out, looked at one another, and did not need much explanation. The frost had caught the standing corn at a bad stage. Mature enough to look safe, wet enough to hold trouble. The husks had not opened properly. They were still tight around the ears. When frost killed them, they collapsed and sealed moisture against the grain. That meant slow dry down. That meant mold risk. That meant downgraded loads if the weather stayed damp. Harold Voss knew it before the scale tickets showed it. He stood beside the elevator office with a coffee cup gone cold in his hand and said, "We're going to see damage on anything still out there." No one argued. Warren Kessler arrived at 9:30, for once. He did not make a speech. He walked straight into the grain office and closed the door. By afternoon, the phones were ringing. The bank wanted to know how many contracted acres were still standing. Valley Grain wanted revised quality projections. The cooperative wanted to know whether the feeder work could be completed faster now that half the county was calling every hour. The official problem was frost. The real problem was timing. Kessler had built his leverage on the assumption that independent farmers needed electricity exactly when Prairie Line could withhold it. He had not planned for a man who had moved his most vulnerable corn out of the weather before the county even considered harvest. The emergency meeting was held 6 days later in the basement of the Duncan Lutheran Church. The room smelled of wet coats, coffee, and paper. Farmers filled every folding chair. The elevator men stood along the wall. The bank sent a loan officer with a briefcase. Kessler sat near the front with 2 Valley Grain representatives and kept a legal pad open in front of him, though he wrote almost nothing. For 40 minutes, the room fought over contract language, discount schedules, moisture penalties, grade failure, delivery obligation, settlement difference, words that sounded like accounting until a man realized they could take his farm apart. Then the loan officer asked a simple question. Does anyone here have corn already stored that was not exposed to the October frost? The room shifted. Noah Baird raised his hand. Not high, not dramatic, just enough. Kessler turned around. For the first time all summer, he looked at Noah as if Noah were not an obstacle in a plan, but a fact the plan had failed to include. The loan officer said, "How much?" Noah answered from the third row. "North and center fields." About 4/5 of the early acreage. Ear corn in the west crib. Started August 30th at 26.5 moisture. Last test was 22.8. I expect to shell before the end of the month. Harold Voss asked. Without fans, Noah nodded. Air through the slats, narrow crib, west wind. Same way it was done before everybody paid for heat and noise. A few men looked down. Not from shame exactly. From the discomfort of realizing an old method had not been old because it stopped working. It had been old because they had stopped needing it. Kessler said nothing. That silence did more damage to him than anything Noah could have said. Within 2 weeks, the first contracted loads came in below grade. Some were discounted heavily. Some were refused for storage until dried. Some had to be hauled farther than anyone had planned. Valley Grain's fall position weakened. The bank reconsidered 2 acquisition notes. The third farm Kessler had expected to fold before winter did not fold at all, because Lee Markham had never signed the contract in his shirt pocket. The $538 restoration deposit disappeared from Noah's account without explanation. No apology came with it. No correction letter. Just a revised statement showing a zero balance, as if the fee had never existed. Prairie Line restored Noah's power on October 24. Noah walked into the well house, reset the breaker, and listened to the pump start for the first time in months. It sounded strong, expensive, useful. He let it run until water lifted through the line. Then he shut it off. Outside, the wind engine was turning. The cistern was full. There was no reason to spend electricity proving he had electricity. Between October 27 and November 6, Noah delivered just over 5,900 bushels of shelled corn to Harold Voss's elevator. The moisture came in inside commercial range. The test weight held. The grade sheet read number 2 yellow corn. Not miracle corn. Not perfect corn. Saleable corn. The cash price had risen after the frost damage tightened local supply, and Noah received more than the spring contract price several neighbors had locked months earlier. He paid his fall accounts. He paid down the note on the 40 acres south of the creek. He bought new leather cups for the pump cylinder and a spare vane board from the lumber yard. Warren Kessler resigned from the Prairie Line board before Christmas, citing private business commitments. Valley Grain reduced its Platte County buying program the following January. In town, men stopped saying the outage had been just an outage. They also stopped saying much about Noah Baird's windmill, because there are some verdicts people accept more easily when they do not have to say them out loud. The next spring, Noah planted again. Not smaller, larger. He rented the Markham 40 after Lee shifted more ground into hay. He repaired the south fence. He built a better brace for the wind tower and painted the tail fin red so he could see its direction from the kitchen window. The old notebook stayed on his desk under a river stone from Shell Creek. He did not use it for the new season. He started a fresh one, but he kept the old notebook where he could see it. A man keeps the record of what saved him. And behind the oat shed, above the well house, the Dempster wheel kept turning whenever the prairie gave it wind. Not because Noah hated electricity. He did not. He used the line when it served him. But he no longer mistook a switch on someone else's pole for the source of his farm. The line came back. The windmill stayed.